Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Oscar. Today I'm going to talk about electronic industry in South Korea. Manufacturers from South Korea have dominated the global electronic market in drums and similar products. However, there has been a tremendous growth in the country's semiconductor industry. In the past decade, the country's throughputs grew from just mainly non-players to drawing almost a quarter of the global market for semiconductors. Evidently, the Samsung brand has the largest share of the world drone market. Semiconductor markets present a formidable force to counterparts in the United States and Japan. There is a continuous support from the government to the industry, coming in terms of tax benefits and product testing. There are improvements to plants, construction of facilities, and development of the workforce. There is also considerable direct support through availing funds from the electronics industry, which is in accordance with the nation's priority list. Currently, there is a new focus on developments and innovations in areas of information and communication technologies and establishment of a local industry for semiconductors. To talk about government and industry cooperation, first, there is a concentrated effort between the South Korean government and industrial industries to obtain new technologies from foreign partners. This happens independently using both direct and indirect techniques. The aim of this is to change the kind of development in the electronics industry. This is from the development being investment-oriented to innovation-oriented. This would offer the country a strategic advantage of innovations in the global electronic industry. This underpinning goes through the entire industry. There are continued improvements to South Korea's system of education and local electronic facilities. The aim is to stimulating and matching the level of the United States of America and Japan. The general public opinion on the electronic industry in South Korea is in support of developments in science and education. Educational establishments, the media, players in the industry, as well as the government nurture the opinion carefully. There is a well-laid bias for technology and infrastructure development. The education system focuses on development of individuals with creative, teamworking, and independence skills. Having such skill in the general population of South Korea would enhance the country's objective of being self-reliant in terms of the workforce that can uphold high standards of technology. There are plans to upgrade the standards of training given to engineers and technicians involved in contribution. So, to talk about products of the electronic industry in South Korea, the first kind of product is consumer electronics, which are mostly like the compact disc, which is CD players, and video cassette recorders, VCRs, and liquid crystal color television sets, and digital audio tape recorders, and other various types of audio equipment. Sales of South Korean-made consumer electronics has slowed down in recent years. Although they continue to account for a substantial share of the country's electronic exports. Digital and logical equipments and passive components such as resistors, capacitors, most important, printed circuit boards. Other products include components of consumer electronics and computers, such as speakers, magnetic tapes, and television turner. Of those electronic parts and components, semiconductor has accounted for the largest production, and magnetic tapes had to have the fastest growth. And concerning the semiconductors, South Korea is a major world producer and the exporter of semiconductors. In recent years, semiconductor has accounted for nearly 10% of South Korea's total exports. 6 major manufacturers produce almost all South Korea-made semiconductors for export. South Korea's other semiconductor firms are primarily assemble or simply manufacturing operations. Most South Korean electronics companies operate under license from manufacturers in the United States of America. And the roles of turbos. The industrial turbo categorizes the economy of South Korea, which enjoys monopolies vertically. The turbos also cover various industries in South Korea, just like the case in Japan. This took advantage of tax breaks and subsidies, loans offered by the government to grow rapidly. This happens in the country's post-war period. The government introduced these incentives to support the industry and allow their growth. In the early years of 1980s, the major turbos, namely Daewoo, Samsung, LG, and Hyundai, grew and throve electronic industry of South Korea. So next, I would like to show you a video about the history of Samsung.
Quest Wait, today I'm going to tell you about the history of Samsung. Right, with bold visual metaphor for the passage of time, what say we take a walk and talk? Now, today we know Samsung is making all sorts of consumer electronics like mobile phones, microwaves, and televisions, but the company dates back to well before the age of affordable gadgets. Samsung was founded in 1938 in the town of Daegu, South Korea, by an enterprising chap called Lee Byung-chul. As a fledgling firm, the company dealt mostly in trade exports, selling groceries like fruit, vegetables, and dried fish. In 1947, take a walk and talk. Now, today we know Samsung is making all sorts of consumer electronics like mobile phones, microwaves, and televisions, but the company dates back to well before the age of affordable gadgets. Samsung was founded in 1938 in the town of Daegu, South Korea, by an enterprising chap called Lee Byung-chul. As a fledgling firm, the company dealt mostly in trade exports, selling groceries like fruit, vegetables, and dried fish. In 1947, Lee moved his headquarters to Seoul, but was forced to leave when the Korean War broke out, moving out of the city to found a sugar refinery and also getting into the textiles trade. In the wake of the Korean War, the company grew, getting involved in loads of other industries, but it wasn't until 1969 that Samsung Group got stuck into electronics, creating a bunch of subdivisions specifically dedicated to creating tech. The first gadget the company made was a black and white TV, the catchily named P3202. By 1976, Samsung had produced 1 million black and white tellies. This was the beginning of Samsung creating electronics. What you might not know is that crafting gadgets is only part of what the company's involved in. For example, did you know that Samsung owns South Korea's largest theme park? It's called Everland, and it plays host to the T-Express, the world's steepest wooden roller coaster. Not weird enough, how about some seriously big vehicles? Check out this road excavator. This is the Samsung SE170. Samsung's also into boats through another of its subsidiaries, Samsung Heavy Industries, which makes massive tankers and passenger ships that make even the Galaxy Note look small. As an aside, Samsung Heavy Industries is headquartered in Samsung Town, an office park in Seoul that, oddly enough, is twinned with Disneyland Paris and Sony World in Tokyo.
But all of that pales into insignificance compared to Samsung TechWin, another subsidiary of Samsung Group that alongside digital cameras has made automated guard robots and the K9 Thunder 155mm howitzer. That's right, it's a Samsung tank.
Moving back to less menacing tech, in 1979 Samsung began mass production of microwaves. In 1980 it started making air conditioners, and in 1983 personal computers. From there Samsung went on to become one of the biggest brands in tech, and today Samsung Electronics employs approximately 160,000 people. That's loads. So Samsung's been a big tech brand for ages, but the reason we talk about it today is because of what the company's doing with smartphones and tablets. In 2010, Samsung brought out the Samsung Galaxy S, and it was one of the best Android phones.
So as we can see that Samsung in those struggles in South Korea economy, they are not just large enterprise, they are the symbols of the South Korea's economy system. And that's pretty much, that's all, that's the end of my presentation, and thank you.